I don't normally get requests to do video responses to Lacy Green. But when I do, I know she's probably said some crazy, off-the-wall, stupid shit. Lacy, take us away.
Hey internet, question. Have you ever worried that someone was lying about rape?
Yes. And considering the fact that I was once a man who was lied on, saying that he was stalking someone, and I know firsthand that people are very eager to believe a beautiful woman. Yeah, I am worried. All the time, actually.
Every single time a woman comes forward about having been abused by a beloved movie star, musician, TV star, YouTubers, that star's fans immediately accuse her of lying.
You know, Lacy, this wouldn't be the first time you've told a half-truth. But you are very clearly, or at least to me it seems you're very clearly trying to paint one side of the picture here. Because it also causes very many people to automatically believe the so-called rape survivor and believe the accused to be guilty simply by word of mouth. And primarily this happens when it is a woman, because women can tell no lies. It is impossible, and we must listen and believe. Anyway, Lacy, you're telling a half-truth. Yes, that does happen, but what also happens is people automatically believe her, and a man's entire life and livelihood gets obliterated. So
There are men's groups online that claim that women lie about rape 90% of the time.
Lies.
Teal dear, buddy, I know this is just your shtick, but I'm sorry. Citation needed, Lacy. Who are these men? Who are these men's groups? I've never once heard anybody say that. Never. Not even Roosh. Not even Paul Elam. No one. This is nonsensical.
A sheriff in Idaho very recently claimed that they don't need a better system for rape kits which collect evidence because most victims are liars.
The majority of our rapes that are called in are actual consensual sex.
You know, call me sexist, but I'm going to have to say this. I've noticed this very general thing about people, but with women especially. It seems for some odd reason they always gotta embellish stories to make it look worse than what it actually was. I've had women in general do that. It's a very interesting thing. I don't know what it is about that causes that. It's just my dog walking through. Anyway, that's actually not what the sheriff said. I mean, it literally isn't what the sheriff said. You heard what he said. He didn't actually say that the women were liars. What he said was more often than not, it's actually not true. In fact, to get the full context of what he said, I'm going to play the clip right now.
I believe the legislature needs to take a strong look at allowing law enforcement to do their job and not try to dictate what we need to do. I think that they're trying to help. I really do.
The proposed legislation would create a statewide system of collecting and tracking the physical evidence in a sexual assault case. Part of that bill would give clinics the responsibility of sending rape kits for DNA testing. That's unless the victim requests otherwise. Currently, law enforcement is in charge of deciding if a kit should be tested.
They need to let us decide if we're going to send the kit in and when we send the kits in. Because the majority of our rapes, not to say we don't have rapes, we do, but the majority of our rapes that are called in are actual consensual sex.
So yeah, Lacy was clearly quote mining, and it sucks that she had to quote mine in order to make the man look bad, but that just kind of goes to show that you shouldn't always believe what you hear. Because if it's quote mining bullshit, it's probably trying to be some propaganda used to convince you of something that isn't true. Continue, Lacy.
And I mean, look, couldn't you or me or anybody in the world just make up a rape for attention?
Yes, you can, which is why people are skeptical. Why we assume innocence before guilt, so we make sure we don't screw people's lives up trying to screw over the wrong guy.
Revenge out of jealousy, as Toby Turner's mom posted on Facebook.
I think it might be wise to actually stop and read what Toby Turner's mom actually said, because she didn't really put it in those words, but I mean, whatever. I just think, you know, context is everything.
Yeah, you could totally do that, but would you do that?
Would I do that? No, not at all, but I have a sense of honor and integrity, and I'm not... I don't even think a lot of people would even pay heed if I said that I was raped by a woman. They probably would say that I needed it, you know, because I'm a virgin and all of that, and people think sex is the most important thing in the world. And it's not. So, no, even if I did do that, I don't think very many people would actually, care, if that were the case.
how often does that actually happen? The FBI states that between 2 and 8% of rape reports are false.
Alright guys, strap in, because we're going to be here for a little while. See, here's the interesting thing about all of that. If you've been on my channel for a while, you know I am not a big fan of statistics for two reasons. I mean, one, there's 3 types of lies. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Statistics can never accurately reflect reality because it's always that of a sample. I can go into detail about that sometime down the line. But second reason why is because there always seems to be one statistic that contradicts the other. Now this isn't to say that statistics are entirely useless, because they're not. It's just that they're entirely useless when you don't apply them correctly, as Lacy is doing right now. So to prove my point about what I was saying about there's always one statistic to contradict the other, I did myself a little bit of that research, right, to find who studies these false rape allegations. So here's just going to read from a couple. Like I said, grab yourselves a nice glass of water. We're going to be here for a little bit. Alright, I got this one from sfcriminaldefense.com. Eugene J. Cunningham, PhD, I believe he's a sociologist, conducted a few studies or studied a few rape allegations. This was done all the way back in 1994. I'm just going to read the abstract here. Alright, I'm going to put the full thing in the description box. With cooperation of the police agencies of a small metropolitan community, 45 consecutive disposed false rape allegations covering a 9-year period were studied. These false rape allegations constitute 41% of the total forcible rape cases, N equals 109, reporting during this period. And for those of you who don't remember, N equals the sample that was studied. So 109 cases were studied of those 45, and all that jazz. You guys passed the 9th grade. These false rape allegations appear to serve 3 major functions of the complaints. Providing an alibi, seeking revenge, and obtaining sympathy and attention. False rape allegations are not the consequence of a gender-linked aberration, as frequently claimed, but reflect impulsive and desperate efforts to cope with personal and social stress situations. Interesting. Now I'm going to read from MediaRadar.org, research on false rape allegations. Title says about half of rape allegations are false. Research shows false allegations of rape are believed to be more commonly than many persons realize. These are the findings of 4 research studies. A review of 556 rape accusations filed against the Air Force personnel found that 27% of women later recanted. Then 25 criteria were developed based on the profile of these women and then submitted to these 3 independent reviewers to review the remaining cases. If all 3 reviewers deemed the allegation was false, it was categorized as false. As a result, 60% of allegations were found to be false. There's a citation there. Of those women who later recanted, many didn't admit the allegation was false until just before taking a polygraph test. Others admitted it was false only after having failed a polygraph test. Interesting. In a 9-year study of 109 rapes reported to the police in Midwestern city, Purdue sociologist Eugene J. Cunningham reported that 41% of the cases the complaints eventually admitted no rape had occurred. Just read the abstract of that study. In a follow-up study of rape claims filed over a 3-year period at 2 large Midwestern universities, Cunningham found that of 64 rape cases, 50% turned out to be false. Among the false charges, 53% of the women admitted they filed the false claim as an alibi. According to a 1996 Department of Justice report, and in about 25% of the sexual assault cases referred to the FBI, the primary suspect has been excluded by forensic DNA testing. It should be noted that rape involves a forcible and non-consensual act, and a DNA match alone does not prove that rape occurred. That makes total sense, since the real crime of rape is state of mind, not the action itself. I'll explain in a little bit down as the video continues. So, the 25% figure substantially underestimates the true extent of false allegations. We continue with, And according to Colorado prosecutor Craig Silverman, quote, "For 16 years, I was a kick-ass prosecutor who made most of my reputation vigorously prosecuting rapists. ... I was amazed to see all of the false rape allegations that were made to the Denver Police Department. ... A command officer in the Denver Police Sex Assault Unit recently told me he placed the false rape allegations at approximately 45%. Interesting, but it continues more, my friends. According to the FBI, about 95,000 forcible rapes were reported in 2004. Based on the statements and studies cited above, some 47,000 American men are falsely accused of rape each year. These men are disproportionately African American." And to wrap this portion up, it says, "Some of these men were wrongly convicted, sentenced, and imprisoned. Even if there is no conviction, a false allegation of rape can emotionally, socially, and economically destroy a person." But we are not done yet, viewers. Not at all. I'm going to read from a Bloomberg View article about how many false rape allegations are correct. And the article starts out by saying that it's impossible to know, and the woman who wrote it is absolutely correct. It's impossible to know. Even from what I've read, it's still not possible to know accurately, right? All we know is that 50% or 45% of those rapes studied were false. That's all we know. We don't know the actual number. Let us continue. I'm just going to read one paragraph because we've been here long enough. And it specifically talks about the statistic Lacy just showed us. It says, "Here's what we do know. The 2% number is very bad and should never be cited. It apparently traces its lineage back to Susan Brown Miller's legendary Against Our Will, and her citation for this figure is a single speech by an appellate judge before a small group of lawyers. His source for this statistic was a single area of New York that started having policewomen conduct all rape interviews. This is not data. It is an anecdote about an anecdote." Continue, Ms. Green.
Which is actually a low number in the crime world. Other crimes, like say theft, they hover around 10% false reports. And even that 2 to 8% statistic is deceptive. It includes reports where someone accidentally identified the wrong person, reports that are thrown out because of inconsistent details, but it is a well-known fact amongst victimologists that trauma affects your memory. And that 2 to 8% includes survivors who recanted. Someone could take it back because they were lying, sure, but much more commonly, they take it back because they're being pressured to take it back.
Well, then to that I only have two things to say. Point number one, citation needed. How do you know this to be the case, Lacy? This all just sounds a bit like an assumption to me. And point number two, if that be the case, if these women are really taking back these true accounts of rape because of pressure, that means that they're letting a rapist continue to walk scot-free. Don't you think that maybe these women should take some responsibility for that? That they had an opportunity to put a rapist away and they didn't? That's some serious stuff right there. Now I know what you're probably saying. It's not really fair to have these women assume responsibility for people they don't know. Well, tough. Feminists wanted women to be like men. Well, there you go. That's your taste of being a man. Take responsibility for people you don't have shit to do with. Sucks, doesn't it?
Because they've decided they'd rather just not deal with it. So what does this mean? It means that malicious, actually false reports and allegations are pretty rare.
Even based on what we've just read from the other statistics, Lacy is technically right here. In fact, most of the time these women aren't doing this out of malicious intent. They're doing it because they don't want to get in trouble. Be as it may though, it being rare, I'm not sure if we can say that. Considering the fact that some of the most popular rape cases that get publicized in the media end up being false. And I don't know what that speaks about it being rare, but even if it is rare, it's very interesting how so many innocent men end up going to jail for that. Or just how many innocent men just end up getting screwed over because of it.
And yet, doubting someone, calling them a liar when they come forward, is extremely common. Many of the reasons why we're inclined to doubt someone
is because we live in a civilized society and we don't want to lock up an innocent person. It's not because we don't like these people. It's not even because we think they're lying. It's because we need to be absolutely sure that we're actually locking up the real rapist. Keep in mind, if we lock up a man who is not a rapist and the rapist continues to walk around scot-free, he can continue to rape. And so we've punished one innocent man and evil reigns. This is why we need evidence in the court system, and why we need to be diligent about actually getting the correct person in jail and away from the general population. It has nothing to do with people who just hate rape victims or survivors or people like that. It's that we want to see justice get done correctly so we get the right person in jail.
Revolve around rape myths, myths about victims, and myths about gender.
Is that fucking right, Lacy? Myths. No, we're talking about St. George and the Dragon here, right? Talking about fucking Perseus, right? And fucking Theseus and the Minotaur, right? Myths here, Lacy.
One, most perpetrators aren't greasy, creepy guys who hang out in the shadows. They're just regular people in our lives.
You know, maybe this is more just a nitpicky detail, but these men are not normal. They may pretend to be normal, and they may assume normal relationships, relatively speaking, but they're not normal people, like, at all. In fact, I think it takes a pretty sociopathic or psychopathic man to commit rape. I don't think rape is in the mindsets of the vast majority of men.
When fans, friends, family, coworkers find out that someone that they know and love did something terrible, it can be really hard to grapple with and accept. And
did you guys notice what Lacy just did there? Let me play it back just in case you didn't pick up on it.
when fans, friends, family, coworkers find out that someone that they know and love did something terrible, it can be really hard to grapple with and accept. And
You guys picked up on it then? Just one more time, just in case you guys. All right, just.
when fans, friends, family, coworkers find out that someone that they know and love did something terrible, it can be really hard to grapple with and accept. And
In case you haven't gotten it yet, Lacy has assumed guilt. She has assumed that whoever claims rape is automatically telling the truth, no matter what. No matter the case, no matter the evidence, she is assuming that these men are guilty. They are guilty until they are proven innocent in Lacy's eyes. And this is the woman who is teaching lots of young women on how to deal with their relationships with men. Alright?
instead, they choose to deny it. That halo effect around a perpetrator can be so strong that you can have cases like Cosby's where nearly 60 women come forward and report and people still don't believe that anything happened.
Well, no, it's very obvious something happened. What we don't know is whether that something was rape. That's the issue, that's the problem. Considering the fact that it took them, the better half of a year before formal charges were brought against Cosby, and all that really happened was these women just got really popular and got on their soapbox. I find it very interesting that most of anyone believed these women without a lick of evidence, and we're just trying to, it looks really like they're just trying to destroy a man's career, really. I mean, if it really bothered these women so much at the time, you'd think they would, I don't know, take it to the police, instead of taking it, Cosmopolitan or some news outlet. I mean, if they were really more looking for justice, they would get the man in jail. They wouldn't try to obliterate all the good that he's done. That just seems textbook scornful, really.
Sometimes the perpetrator even goes so far as to say, I didn't do it. They're lying.
Well, that's very interesting, huh, Lacy? If the perpetrator of whom you have assumed guilt says they didn't do it, they're lying. But if the victim says that he did it, they're telling the truth. Because fuck all. No standard for which he's lying. Probably has to do with him being a man, that old patriarchy thing, right? I mean, I don't even understand how that works in your mind, Lacy. I really don't.
This affirms people who don't want to believe that the sexual assault happened.
Actually, Lacy, more commonly than not, isn't that people automatically think that the woman isn't telling the truth. They're reserving judgment because they want to see the Carfax. Well, evidence. And the reason why is because they don't want to destroy someone's life going off of something that isn't true. I mean, bearing in mind, there are people who believe these women because they said it. Case in point, you and all the other people who are calling different YouTubers and different men rapists when they were never formally charged, never went to court, and were never convicted. Which isn't saying that they aren't. However, we don't know if they are, and that's the point. It's not about disbelieving these women because we have to defend these idols. It's about taking a balanced look and say, well, let's figure this thing out before we go incarcerate someone who hasn't done something wrong. That's why they're innocent until they're proven guilty, to make sure innocent people don't get fucked over. What about that don't you understand? Fuck!
There are a lot of people, particularly in the States, who believe that in order for a rape to be real, you have to have reported it.
Lacy, there isn't a single human being who thinks that. Not one. I will say this as objective fact. No one is saying that in order for the rape to actually have happened, a woman has to report it. It's entirely possible for a woman to get gang raped and never say a word about it. No one is saying that it didn't happen. What they're saying is that we should incarcerate people on the word of mouth of people saying it happened. That's what they're saying. And is it true that some people might call them liars? Certainly. But they certainly don't think that it's not true until someone says it. Bearing in mind, jackass, all the statistics I just read came from officially reported rapes and they weren't true. So that's just nonsensical. I mean, it would have been easier to just say citation needed, but no, I've bitten off till you're way too much today.
And in order for that report to be true, a court must convict them as guilty. Now, in reality, about 68% of victims of sexual crimes don't report, and
Lacy, do you possess an inkling of common sense? If 68% of rape reports aren't reported, how the fuck can you then report it, dumbass? Yeah, I mean, you can say 68% of rape reports aren't officially reported, and even then, I would see that it's kind of pointless to report it at all if you're not going to officially report it. Not unless it makes you feel better about what actually happened. Although I still say it makes a much better idea to get the man off the streets.
only 2% of rapists ever see a day in jail.
Yeah, that's bullshit. One, you're assuming that 98% of all the people who are convicted innocent are actually guilty. It's interesting how you're the arbiter of truth, Lacy, and you can do no wrong. Even though you've been lying throughout your fucking YouTube career, but that's not what's on trial today. Second thing, Lacy, that's obviously false is the vast majority of rape that actually happens are in jail. Dumbass.
Does that mean that 98% of people are just lying? No, it means that our courts aren't arbiters of truth.
Oh, but you are. You, who is assuming that these men are actually rapists with zero evidence. You are the arbiter of truth, but not the court system, of which requires the evidence needed that you don't. Okay, Lacy, I apologize for that, you know. I guess you being a feminist must mean that you are all-knowing, too. Gee, maybe I should become a feminist. Maybe I can get uploaded to this network of knowing what is false and what is not.
And they're not always adequately equipped to handle sexual crimes. Then there are myths about how a real victim would act.
Lacy, at this point, I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, anyone with a functioning cognitive system would know that rape victims or victims of anything act differently, because human beings act differently. That's a huge portion of that whole psychology thing that people study. People understand that rape victims act differently. What people are saying, though, is when you make a Tumblr post about when you were raped, instead of going to the police, it causes a little bit of doubt, because it looks more like your intentions are to screw up a career than it is to get that nigga in jail. And that's where people's skepticism comes from. Do you not? What about that? Aren't you? You know what? Just keep going.
In reality, there's no one response to sexual assault. Different people handle it in lots of different ways. Another myth when it comes to men is the belief that men can't actually be raped. Men want sex all the time. He had an erection. He was into it. But
interestingly enough, that's a myth perpetuated by feminists. But will you attribute that to feminism?
an erection is not consent, and increased blood flow can be a fight or flight response. Lastly, one of the sneakiest and I think most pervasive reasons why people don't believe survivors is that most survivors are women.
Is that fucking right, Lacy? We don't believe... We live in a society that hates us, just hates us. Right, Lacy? Is that what you're trying to tell me? That we just hate women. That's why. Because we hate them. You know, why do we hate women, Lacy? Why? Why do we hate women? What did women do to society to make them hate them so much? Women had to have done something, Lacy. Alright, I'm thoroughly convinced that somehow throughout history, women must have just collectively have been shitty people, and men created the patriarchy to make sure that shittiness didn't come out of control. Right? Because I'm seriously starting to think women had to have done something to make society hate them to such a fucking degree. And even if that is the case, Lacy, your nonsensical idea that we don't believe women because they're fucking vaginas, really, we don't automatically believe anyone because we don't want to put someone who may be innocent in jail. I'm seriously getting so sick of this tripe that we live in a society of which hates women. America is not that society. Fuck!
There are many subconscious sexist beliefs that we learn all throughout our lives that come in and inform our opinions.
Pause. You ever notice how feminists are always just like it's just society? We just internalize it throughout our lives. Just all these different messages. They can never say what message, never lead to any commercial. No, they gotta take video games, blow things out of proportion, try to sell you a false narrative by lying to you about how we could have learned these things that apparently we learned. Right? They gotta take fucking magazines, pieces of paper with sexy women on there and say, see, look at this! It's this picture right here that makes us hate women, that makes us think less of women. It's not women themselves, no, because women, nobody hates women because shitty women have been in their lives. That doesn't fucking happen. It's all society. No, women had nothing to do with that. It's not a shitty woman who exists. Not one woman who is a liar or a jackass. Not one. We just hate them. We hate all of them. Not those shitty women like regular people do. No, we just all hate women because of society, because reasons. It's frustrating. It's so frustrating to me.
That women lie a lot, we're not trustworthy, we're manipulative.
You know, interestingly enough, Lacy, you are all of those things. But it's not because you're a woman. It's probably because a lot of different reasons that I won't get into.
You know, bitches be crazy. No.
Some bitches are crazy, which is why most normal people don't associate with those bitches. It is entirely possible to hate a subset of some women of whom are terrible people and not hate all women. And even then, that's not even the reason why people don't believe rape victims. Lacy, they treat them with skepticism to make sure that, you know what, I've explained it long enough.
Those attitudes and biases within ourselves go unchecked, they absolutely do real damage. But wait, what if it really is actually truly false? False reports are illegal, and they're typically taken pretty seriously when they surface. It's really important to talk about them, because ultimately, in this fight, we're fighting for justice, for everyone. So we need to pay attention in the rare moments that this happens to address them, to better understand them, and we do a whole lot of talking about false reports, which is why we also need to talk about the reality that sexual assault accounts are nearly always true.
Lacy, that is just not true. Seriously, it's just not. And even if that were the case, even if it were the case, that is most of the time true. That doesn't mean that we just fuck people's lives up. We still need evidence so we convict the right person.
More readily believe someone who says they've been robbed than they've been raped.
That's because there's more evidence to the point of someone being robbed than someone being raped. I mean, here's the thing, right? When someone is robbed, you can very clearly see that they're either roughed up or they no longer have the object that they claim was stolen. I mean, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, except when something was stolen, it's not there anymore. But the thing with rape, which makes it a very hard crime to prosecute, is it's not a crime of which the action itself is wrong, but the state of mind. It's a lack of consent. I mean, bearing in mind, rough sex isn't illegal, right? Having really crude sex isn't illegal. Having sex at all is not illegal. What is illegal is having sex with someone who doesn't want to have sex with you, which is a mindset, right? Which means you can technically consent and say yes enthusiastically 6 ways to Sunday, and in your mind say, I don't want to have sex, feel like you were raped even though you gave consent, and you would still technically be raped by definition. I mean, it's some crazy shit about the whole nuance of consent, but that's the case. It's a state of mind. So how do you prove a state of mind? Just all devolves into he said, she said, which is why we need some of that evidence. So we don't end up convicting someone who may be lying or lied about. That's the point. It's not about hatred of women or anyone. It's about making sure we get the right person in jail so he either gets rehabilitated or away from the general population.
Men are far more more likely to be sexually assaulted than to be falsely accused. How it's far more common that a survivor is convinced to back down by the public, friends, family, even the police.
Yeah, no, I don't believe you. I don't, and it has something to do with the fact that you're a liar, Lacy. You lie all the time. You lie like the wind blows, and you actively try to manipulate people. But more to that, I don't believe that any police officer would actually try to make a woman not get a perpetrator in jail. I mean, there are some shitty cops, but they can't be that shitty. And more than that, if a woman does end up recanting her statement when a man actually is a rapist, you do understand that you've just helped a rapist walk free and can now freely rape other women. Does that not bother you a little bit? It bothered me. I'm just saying.
When something horrible did happen. We need to talk about how widespread myths and disbelief protect abusers and allow them to keep on abusing others.
On a technicality, women recanting true statements are actually the things that end up protecting abusers, not myths. Yeah, I know, it kind of looks like I'm being really rough on these women who recant their statements, and I'm not really trying to be rough, I'm just being blunt. I mean, seriously, if you are telling the truth and you genuinely recant it because you're scared, you gotta take responsibility for all the other women who might get raped. And you think that that's not fair, but, well, if you're a feminist, it is absolutely fair. It's called being a man. That's called male privilege. Take responsibility for people you don't know. Sucks, doesn't it?
False reports are something that worries you. Know that statistically, you're on the side of reason and justice and truth to believe someone who comes forward. We need
Statistically, no you're not. Which is why I'm not a big fan of statistics.
to be willing to face the truth, to approach justice honestly, even when the perpetrator is someone that we know and love. So to April Fletcher and any survivor who finds the strength to come forward on YouTube or beyond, I believe you. And one day I hope that the world does too.
Yeah, so that's the end of her video and subsequently the end of mine. You know, my voice is pretty hoarse after all that shouting I did. And to explain, the reason why this frustrates me so much is because Lacy and I have already danced this dance once before, about a year ago, and I had to defend Sam Pepper, and I'm not really even a big fan of Sam Pepper. Now, I think most people already know that this video Lacy did was inspired by what happened with Tobuscus, or Toby Turner, right? So let me be clear here. I'm not defending Tobuscus, or I wasn't even defending Sam Pepper. What I have defended, and will continue to defend, is the principle of being innocent until you're proven guilty. Because I am seriously so fucking tired of watching innocent people get burned by this nonsensical idea that we just automatically believe people when they say they were raped. This doesn't mean you disbelieve them, mind you, especially if it was your friend. I mean, in fact, if it was your friend, it would make perfect sense why you believe them. Some random broad off the internet? I'm sorry, I don't automatically believe you, right? Because there have been many times in my life where I've automatically believed nonsense that came from the media and I end up being wrong. And that happens, which is why we should always wait until all the evidence and all the information comes out. We reserve judgment until we understand the full picture. And even then, some new details can always come out. For example, that whole thing with Emma Sulkowicz. I was absolutely wrong about that. I thought she was raped. Turns out she wasn't. And this is why I don't automatically believe should I hear from the media, or especially should I hear off of Tumblr. It's not about defending rapists. It's about making sure the correct person goes to jail. Defending the principle. We need these standards and we need these principles to make sure innocent people don't suffer. And that's what I'm all about. Alright? So yes, I was upset and harsh and angry, but I'm seriously tired of this shit. With that being said, man, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, man, go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below, and as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I will see you cool cats soon. Adios.